Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the Government Blockchain Association's talk show, and I would like to welcome everyone back to this episode. We are going to have a very interesting conversation about Bitcoin and a lot of other conversations that are relevant to current events right now because of the fact that, at least in the United States, we are becoming more crypto friendly, supposedly, and so there's a lot more awareness of people stepping into the crypto space, stepping into the Bitcoin space, and then we also have the conversation that's going on through current events about Bitcoin reserves and a treasury, and what does that really mean? So today, I have a special guest on, Bryant, who's going to be talking about that because of the Satoshi Institute, which we're going to talk about. And for those that don't know about the GBA talk show or about myself, again, welcome. I'm Jacqueline Cooper, and my background is in law, a partner with Cogent Law Group, but I'm also the co-chair of the GBA Legal Working Group and involved with a lot of other parts of the GBA, which is a great organization. If you are new to this talk show, definitely check it out. The links will be below. It's an international organization that provides education, events, and a lot of great networking opportunities. But today, Brian, welcome. Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about your background? And then I know we've had another conversation about another topic that's near and dear to our heart, which is education. But today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and this whole world. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jackie, for having me on.
Yeah.
A little background on myself. I've been in the technology space from a training perspective for decades, unfortunately. That's just showing my age. But one of the areas that, of course, has impacted us a lot is this idea of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin having had its start in 2008 and 9, it has basically transformed the world. We went from something where it was literally worth nothing to a multi-trillion-dollar market for this crypto coin. And as a result of that dramatic change, new opportunities have arrived, and that's one of the reasons why we're here to talk about the Satoshi Institute.
Yeah. So what is the Satoshi Institute? For those that might not know, do you want to kind of even take us to who Satoshi is?
So, if you don't, if you understand what we now consider modern day blockchain, it is, it was developed. The current structure was developed by a person or people that went by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, and so. The choice of the name, harkens to that development. But the Satoshi Institute by itself we view ourselves as a premier educational organization focused on advancing Bitcoin native treasury management strategies. It's our hope that we train professionals, institutions, and innovators in the financial engineering, risk modeling, and economic theory behind Bitcoin as a long-term treasury asset. So, the Satoshi Institute we're not here to advise you as to what you should be doing. We're not here to advise you as to, what kind of structures or financial engineering that you need to take, but we're here to provide enterprise grade educational understanding of these decisions, of these engineering choices and risk modeling for institutions who are wanting to become Bitcoin, have part of their treasuries as a Bitcoin treasury, but also for government agencies. The U.S. government has come out, and already 2 or 3 states have already announced that they will create a Bitcoin strategic reserve for themselves. But that's what we are at the Satoshi Institute, an educational platform.
So, what makes the Satoshi Institute different than other Bitcoin education programs that might exist already?
Well, while others teach, what Bitcoin is, what we teach is what Bitcoin can do,
Mhm.
specifically for balance sheets, capital strategy, and macro resistant finance. What we try to do is combine the policy intelligence, Monte Carlo simulations, and hand-on treasury scenarios that prepare the people who come to us, our learners, for the real decisions that Bitcoin demands. You know, our programs are built for CFOs and institutional investors and corporate treasurers and even Bitcoin miners and forward-thinking executives who want to understand Bitcoin's role in capital allocation, cash flow planning, and sovereign-resistant financial infrastructure.
Got it. That's critical right now because there's a lot of conversation and people are going to be um, struggling to figure out the steps. Is this only for Bitcoin maximalists? I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
I would say no, not at all. The Satoshi Institute welcomes pragmatists, skeptics, and visionaries alike. And our approach is educational and it's not evangelical. We ground our insights in data, economic theory, and real-world case studies from the likes of like MicroStrategy or Tesla or a government like El Salvador.
Yeah, yeah. I can definitely appreciate that. What kind of programs does the institute currently offer? Even though I know that you're going to be constantly expanding.
Yeah, our basic offering now is a couple of things. So we have what we refer to as our Bitcoin Treasury Masterclass, and that is actually delivered either in a 2-day intensive or a 4-week, 3-hour, once a week night over a period of 1 month. We also have some programs on the analyst certifications. We have programs on for directors because they're having to actually figure out, I have the CFO and I have the director of treasury saying that this is something we want to do. We need to understand this from a governance standpoint.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we are looking to expand these programs that we have. And you can actually go to the website and see that more in detail, but also then with biweekly master classes. I would say that not necessarily master classes, but they're very specific to the roles of an individual. So if you're a CFO, you wouldn't want to go to all of them, but there are something that are ongoing. And the whole idea is to build all these things into an experience that allows you to not only understand it, but one of the things that we've done is we've built out some very intense simulations. It allows for individuals and organizations to go in and see what it's like to actually create and run a Bitcoin treasury process without the real world risks. So if you think of them as paper portfolios, but it allows for them to understand and make the decisions and go through that process.
What I love about that is many years ago, my brother was trying to teach me about trading, not on the crypto side, but in other stocks and things like that. And so, I think it was TD Ameritrade or one of these other, some of the traditional banks. They had these behind the scenes kind of learning platforms, so that way you could, with not real money, experiment to see what your strategies were to see if you were going to lose or be successful. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense to create something so you could be learning at the same time that you're actually trying to figure out how to apply this in the real world. Um, so why does the Bitcoin treasury strategy matter now?
Why?
Mm.
Well, a couple of things here. Here in the United States, we have just passed the Genius Act, and the Clarity Act is about to be passed. These are basically fundamental changes from um, the US being kind of anti crypto to being really more crypto. And
Yeah.
of course, what we're looking at is we're looking at global volatility, we're looking at inflationary pressures, we have fiat currency dilutions, which have forced institutions to rethink reserve management. And of course, the other thing is that Bitcoin is no longer fringe. It's become a legitimate tool for sovereign hedging, long-term store of value, and liquidity transformation. These regulatory market changes, the absolute maturity of Bitcoin specifically has changed and created an environment now where having a Bitcoin treasury strategy is more important than ever.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. Knowledge is everything. Whether or not you decide to go forward, it's important for you to educate so you know what your options are. And then if you do decide to go forward, knowing how to do it in a way that makes sense for yourself individually as well as within your company. So, how does the institute support Bitcoin miners? I'm a Bitcoin miner, but again, there's all different levels from the individual to the institutional. How do you support the Bitcoin miners?
Well, Bitcoin miners have been running technically the longest running, Bitcoin treasury management process. They're not only mining the Bitcoins, but they're actually holding it as an asset within their balance sheets. So, it's not just that we're focusing on the pickaxe, we're actually helping trainers understand the impact of grid economics and energy arbitrage and ancillary services, as well as the capital stack of mining operations, from self mining to ASIC backed loans. We have simulators as part of this that help actually miners model profitability even in bear markets. If you start to step back and look at the number of institutions that have Bitcoin as their treasuries, probably out of the top 20, uh, maybe 8 or 9 of them are Bitcoin miners. And so, it's one thing to say, look at Bitcoin treasury solutions as just buying Bitcoin and holding. But there are also, the investments in Bitcoin miners. The current analysis is that Bitcoin miners can actually mine a Bitcoin for about 65 to $70,000 a coin, while if you went out to buy it, it would be like 117,000. So there is a huge need to pay attention to Bitcoin miners in addition to organizations and governments that are actually doing this.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I wasn't aware of that. What is the teaching method that you're using for the Satoshi Institute?
Sure. So our programs actually blend scenario-based learning, interactive simulations, and case studies from real BTC treasury strategies. So you can kind of think of it as a financial war room for Bitcoin, where learners model the risks and rewards of every treasury decision.
So, again, you know that I represent the Maryland Blockchain Association as well as the Blockchain Legal Institute, as well as being part of the GBA, Government Blockchain Association. So in my head, I'm thinking about, people that I know that will have an interest in this. But for those that are listening to our talk show, the question that they might be asking as they're listening to this is, okay, this sounds great. I want to learn. So how do they get started?
Well, you can always go to the SatoshiInstitute.com and explore upcoming courses. You can subscribe to our Bitcoin Alchemy newsletter,
Mhm.
or you can even enroll in our free Bitcoin Treasury Basics webinar. And for those who are ready to turn conviction into strategy, the Institute is the launch pad for you to make that happen. But there's a lot of ways that you can do it, and what we have done more, we believe, better than anyone else is to create a curated, um, scenario-based learning environment, and again, deeply embedding interactive simulations and case studies for people to understand more about Bitcoin Treasury.
Well, I think again, it's all there's there's power in knowledge, and I think in our space, especially in the Bitcoin space, it's important to understand all the pieces, especially not just what's in the current events. What you're doing with the Satoshi Institute, I think, is definitely providing. The information that's needed both for individuals as well as enterprises who are thinking about stepping into this space, because there's always planning that's involved. Whenever,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so that type of education and consulting is definitely needed. So, any last minute thoughts before we kind of sign off and go to our next topic?
Well, actually, I just wanted to thank you once again for the opportunity to be here on the GBA Spotlight podcast. GBA, just as an aside, GBA is a wonderful organization, and
Yes.
individuals who want to learn more, not only about blockchain, but there are so many working groups that are a part of GBA that you can explore a lot of things that are available through GBA in ways that you would not have ever imagined. It's a very diverse group of people who are highly committed to the success of not only blockchain technology, but various other Web3 technologies that are part of it. And they've, as the on the screen here, you're going to see in the lower right hand side the reference to the blockchain maturity model. GBA has spent countless hours with hundreds of different volunteers to create these maturity models specific to industry specific sectors. And so, from that standpoint, please go to gbaglobal.org, learn more about GBA, and maybe we'll meet in the future.
Yeah, and all the links will definitely be in the blog below, and just like you mentioned, the Government Blockchain Association is international. I mean, over 500 chapters around the world, and knowing about Bitcoin is not just geographic specific. So even
Correct.
if you're in another part of the world and you're thinking about, what sort of Bitcoin treasury strategy, are, down the road, having this education and knowledge, I think is really valuable, both personally as well as for the business, because Bitcoin is here. So
Correct.
thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
on.
again.
Yeah, and stay tuned because Brian and I were talking about other topics that we're going to be kind of recording in the future that are equally important to be a part of your knowledge base. So everyone who's on today, thank you so much. And we will talk soon. And everyone, have a great day.